expect nothing, and I'm still let down.
How's it going, everyone? Welcome to the 606. I'm your host, SES Vince, and I got the homie Basharat with me. How's it going, Bosh?
No, it's going good. It's going good. I am.
Is it? Is it?
Yeah, man. It's good. I've got the rage out a couple days. Maybe it would have been better to record while I was enraged. Still, maybe it'd be more entertaining. I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, able to sit with the fact, the fact that we've already known, but it's still never easier to be reminded of that. This historic, legendary franchise that we love to follow is a laughingstock. But yeah.
Oh, yes. So many different podcasts or of NBA players are just completely roasting the Bulls. Jeff Teague, Draymond Green, they're over here like, what are the Bulls doing? So let's talk about it. Our woes start with I believe this was Sunday night, and we had an episode talking about it. So if you want to hear the details of the trade and our thoughts, go ahead and check that out. I believe that was episode 7 on the Straight Talk on the 606 podcast. So we had the 3-team trade that moved De'Aaron Fox to San Antonio, Zach LaVine to Sacramento, and 3 future firsts, which are really only 2. And then Kevin Huerter, Trey Jones, Zach Collins, and our own 2025 first-round pick returning back to us. Now, first off, this trade looks fantastic for the San Antonio Spurs. It looks very questionable for the Sacramento Kings, especially the first couple games they've had Zach on. They're still trying to figure things out. And then for the Bulls, we're recording this while they're having their game against the Golden State Warriors. Kevin Huerter and Trey Jones are making their Bulls debut. Zach Collins, I don't expect
For some reason. I mean, we have Julian Phillips and we've got Dalen Terry. We've got our own young guys to play out. Why are these guys playing? Who knows?
Again, there was reports going around that Trey Jones could be a guy that we bring back next season.
Do you think we should have like maybe all guards only on the roster next year? Like, should we maybe that's a way to get like the number 1 pick and go for Cam Boozer.
So what I was very disappointed in the Bulls is that when Ben Simmons hit the buyout market, they should have went after him so he can play small ball point guard center and just have a nothing but guard line. Nothing but guards,
I mean, we're gonna have to at some point, because if they decide to re-sign Trey Jones, nobody's taking Javon Carter off our hands. Arturas Karnisovas has already proven he can't really move very many players, so we're not going to be trading Kobe White or anything. So we're just probably he'll re-sign Josh Giddey. We're going to have like 8 guards on the roster. So yeah, sure, why not?
Us Bulls fans and any of the listeners that are Bulls fans, or maybe you're just basketball fanatics and you just like to see a worse off franchise than yourself to make you feel better about your current situation of the team. We're going to go into the roster depth first before we hand things off to Bosh and just like guide the thing. Let's look at the depth chart. Once again, shout out to Bobby Marks. I had to go ahead and erase on the bottom Torrey Craig and erase what's his name? Chris Duarte.
We've already forgotten.
Yes, we've already forgotten.
We hardly knew you.
Yeah, we hardly knew the guy. But I have to erase those names from there and move some stuff around. So the projected starting lineup, which wasn't actually the lineup tonight: Lonzo Ball, Kobe White, Josh Giddey, Patrick Williams, Nikola Vucevic. Key reserves are Trey Jones, as mentioned, Javon Carter, who I don't expect to see any playing time for the rest of the season, Kevin Huerter, who is going to take up a little bit of those Zach LaVine minutes, Ayo Dosunmu, who's also going to take up more of those Zach LaVine minutes on top of taking up a much larger role. Dylan Horton-Tucker, Chicago's own, I don't expect to see anytime soon as well. Montez Bucelas actually started for the Bulls. I believe it was his first home start of the season tonight against the Golden State Warriors.
And introed as from the G League Ignite when they could have, they shouldn't have gone with from Chicago because that's not quite true. But I think from Hinsdale would have worked just fine. I think most of that crowd is probably from the suburbs anyway. So
I like the G League Ignite thing from
it. It no longer exists.
No,
So
it's fine. But it gives it like we're living through Montez Bucella's NBA 2K my career. And we're just like watching his because that's the only good thing about the Bulls currently is trying to see his development.
yeah,
Continuing down the line, we got Zach Collins, who I don't expect to see any playing time. You have Jalen. Yeah, right. Why am I drawing a
yeah.
blank on the center? What's our
You
backup?
talking about you talking about Jalen Smith?
Jalen Smith. Yeah, he's right there.
Yeah,
Yeah, we have
yeah.
Jalen Smith and we have Nikola Vucevic. I don't expect Zach Collins to get any playing time. Dalen Terry, we'll see how he looks. Julian Phillips is a guy that definitely should be getting some playing time, especially over Patrick Williams right now. I don't really want to see Patrick right now. He has good games here and there, but it's not very much consistent. But that's essentially the Bulls, and I don't think this is going to be the starting lineup going forward. I think you just take out Patrick Williams and you just have Montez Bucella's start the rest of the way. Just give him those minutes, give him that time to develop. Patrick Williams has already lost his spot in my eyes.
Well, they are starting Madison, and Pat Will has come off the bench still, so
Yeah.
that's fine.
So
Yeah.
what? First off, where would you like to go next? Like, you want to talk about like what the Bulls offseason? Because here's the thing. Here's the thing that really like just kind of like almost really pissed me off when I saw this. Actually, hold up, I had to pull it up. It was a tweet. I'm over here at work because I get off right as the closing of the NBA trade deadline. So I'm waiting for some news, something. There's like 3 hours, 4 hours, couple minutes left, and then I see Casey Johnson tweet this. We're going live with their trade deadline special on the Chicago Sports Network. It says Bulls were active. Love that phrase. They were active, but Zach LaVine will be the only deal for now, I'm told. There was a sub tweet afterwards saying that they've quote unquote laid the groundwork for some offseason movements, and we will see more movement in the summer. And I love Casey Johnson, but he's so much of a Bulls apologist that sometimes it's a little infuriating. It's okay to be critical of a team
It's a
and a
little.
franchise.
It's the one down. It's the only downside of Casey, who I feel like when I first started watching Bulls basketball, or watching coverage of Bulls basketball, he was the
Right.
young guy on the beat, and kind of like he's grown old as we've gotten
Yeah.
older, and it's cool to still have him around. I think he's a great reporter. I think he's a fun commentator when he's on podcasts or on TV.
Yes.
But he is an apologist for the Bulls. He always is trying to kind of rationalize their moves, it seems like, or at least providing the insight from Bulls insiders that he's hearing that does spin it their way, and then he kind of like repeats that back. And it's not to say he's not critical, he is, but he's certainly tries to put their moves in a better light as more
100%. He did a really good job. He does a really good job of doing that. He did a really good job of trying to spin in a positive way. The only guy I'm not excited about is Zach Collins, like like Kevin Huerter, Trey Jones. Those are guys that if they're gonna be playing, sure, let them play or whatever. See what they actually bring to the table. See if it's someone that could like recoup their value around the league. Maybe in the offseason do a sign and trade for Trey Jones if you don't bring him back, or just let him walk. Honestly, like
I
at
mean, he
this
makes
point,
less than 10 mil a year. You don't need to do a sign and trade. Anyone who wants to sign him can just sign him. I don't really see the value of having him at all. Why would we re-sign him? We get nothing for him.
I mean,
He's expiring salary.
if you're
Frankly, doesn't make
getting
any
rid of
sense.
like a Kobe White for instance, then sure, keep him around. Like, or if you deal Alonzo Ball, then sure, why not? Or even an Ayo Dosunmu. We talked about that on our trade episodes. That Ayo Dosunmu, Kobe White, and Lonzo Ball. I don't believe Josh Giddey is going anywhere. I think we're stuck with Giddey for the
We're
foreseeable
stuck with all
future.
of them, man. No, they're not trading any of them.
We'll see. Like again, I don't want to speculate on what they will not do. It's more than likely that they don't do anything. Obviously, they might just end up only trading Vooch. Finally, they always do it like way too late and
It's
after
not
the fact.
speculation. It's informed, opinion based on
Okay,
4 years of record of this guy. So
fair enough.
at some point you have to take that observation and kind of draw some conclusions from it.
Yeah. So, I mean, like I said, I'm not really too excited about these guys coming in here, but I heard a speculation, and I'm not very happy about this speculation or the prospect because it's almost very realistic. Knowing our front office, they were saying Well, it was crucial for the Bulls to get their control over their future first round pick, not only for this year but for the foreseeable future. Because now in the offseason, they can go ahead and package uh, Kevin Herter and Zach Collins, because together they make about 36 million. You package them with another player if you need to, but 36 million, so you can make a run at like a Zion Williamson. And I'm not saying that was a good move or anything, or even the the YouTuber that I saw, they didn't say that that was a good move and they wanted to see that, but it's a realistic option that especially after Karnisovas's presser on Thursday, or was it Friday, when he talks to Casey Johnson and then all did the whole media thing. It really sounded like he's just gonna keep even kill, play in like territory. If we make it, we make it. If we don't, we don't. And he's just gonna keep us in limbo. And the best way to keep us in limbo is to trade for an injury-riddled superstar like Zion Williamson, who I would have loved for the Bulls to have when they were competitive. But if he's the focal point of your franchise and that's what you're trading, now you're trading future first-round picks and like cap filler to get the guy. Like, you're saving the New Orleans Pelicans from a headache, and you're just giving yourself a brand new one. I don't know what before I let you continue, Bosh. What are your thoughts on this speculation? Do you
I
think
don't really have any thoughts on this. This is nonsense.
is
Whatever.
it plausible? Is it plausible
Anything
as
is plausible that would fit the
it
the
gave me
sort of the
it
psych
worried me?
profile I now have of
Yes,
Arturas Karnisovas, because again, it would be, he has that sort of mentality where he thinks, only players that he has seen perform in the NBA hold value to him, and then his idea of buy low is not to buy a guy with potential, or to buy multiple swings at a draft pick or something. His idea of buy low is to buy on a guy who has performed but is considered a lower asset because of injury. That's sort of his idea of buying low. So yeah, sure, it's plausible. I mean, is it likely? I don't know. Zion's contract is largely unguaranteed for large
yeah,
portions of it, with the minimal play that he's at. I think at the end of this season, more of it will become unguaranteed, because I don't think he's going to
yeah,
hit any of those minimums that are
no,
required. He has a very unique contract structure that each year he hits a certain threshold of games that then guarantees more of the contract down the road.
yeah.
And so whatever, man. There's not really much to say on that. It's whatever.
I don't know. What would be your reaction if you find out in the summer that we traded Vooch and then we also traded for Zion?
Literally, it would be whatever. Just
All right, man.
yeah.
All right. Where to next, Bosh?
I mean, Zach LaVine. That's the move that was made.
Yeah.
There were no others, and we have had a spirited discussion, some
Yes.
yelling on the phone about this already. But to me, that was a move that we made to get nothing. And not only nothing, we actually took on negative salary, which, if you look around the league, if you look at what Detroit did, taking KJ Martin from Philly, or the way they got, I think Schroeder is part of that, or the way Toronto took PJ Tucker. Like, these guys are taking, they asked for picks in order to take this dead
Charlotte.
salary.
Charlotte took some salary.
Charlotte took dead salary. The players that were not helping their current teams, who did not want to have their contracts in the books, get traded to other teams who have that room and capability to take on the contract because they're not competing, or because they've got extra cap space, and they pay them for the privilege. But here in Chicago, we don't consider that a negative at all. We take on all the dead contracts. I mean, why did our pick go to San Antonio when we made the DeMar DeRozan pick? Do you know why? We traded a protected first round pick to San Antonio for that privilege. Do you know why we did that, Vince? Was it for DeMar, who was not under contract with the San Antonio Spurs?
Yes, it was for DeMar
No, no,
DeRozan.
no. Did the pick go for DeMar? Like,
No,
is that the reason?
no.
No. Do you remember why? Well,
Why?
it's because when the Bulls made the trade with Orlando to trade away our young player and assets, so Wendell Carter Jr. plus 2 first round picks, to get the aging Nikola Vucevic, who Orlando was kind of desperate to get off of at that point to rebuild. We then agreed to take back bad salary from them. Again, this is something that people don't focus on when you're a casual fan. Oftentimes, a lot of the reporting glosses over, and unless you look at real like analytical guys, if you're reading those guys on whatever site, then you'll pick up on it. But if you're just reading the standard reporting, then you're not really grasping what's going on, like the details of it. And this is something that does not happen with good teams, but happens with the Bulls. They don't know what they're doing. Arturas Karnisovas does not know what the fuck he's doing. He does not know how to be a GM because he traded those picks in Wendell Carter Jr. for Nikola Vucevic, and he agreed to take back Al-Farouq Aminu, whose, I believe, $13 million or so a year salary was negative money that nobody wanted. By that point, Aminu was no longer a contributing player, and even if he did play, was vastly overpaid, and his contract ran into another year. So when the time came then, because we took back Aminu, in order to get DeRozan in, the Bulls had to dump a little bit of salary on the way out, and that salary was Aminu at $13 million a year.
Yeah.
And San Antonio did not want Farouq Aminu, so we had to pay them for that privilege. Otherwise, it would have been seconds for DeMar. But we had to pay them a premium because we had to give them the bad contract that we took on for free from Orlando. We didn't say, hey, you're giving us this bad contract, therefore, we're only going to give you one first-round pick in Wendell Carter Jr. No, because Arturas Karnisovas doesn't know what the fuck he's doing, and he took on a bad contract for free. Then he had to pay somebody else who does know what they're doing in order to take it. So we paid the first-round pick to dump Al-Farouq Aminu, not to sign DeMar DeRozan. That's why we gave that first-round pick to San Antonio.
Because they could have easily, they could have facilitated it. But like you were saying, like with the Lonzo Ball situation, they only gave up a second-round pick to get him. Yeah. It would have been very similar. They would have been they would have had to send some salary, but they wouldn't have to give up that much.
Let's go to a very, very, very DeMar DeRozan. Then this summer, before the season, got moved to Sacramento in a sign and trade deal because Sacramento couldn't sign him, just like we couldn't sign DeMar at the time. So Sacramento, for signing DeMar DeRozan, gave us a second-round pick. Yeah. Right? We got one second-round pick from San Antonio. That's what we got for him. Mm-hmm. But they needed to dump a bad contract. Harrison Barnes, to them, a bad contract. I think somebody who could have been rehabbed and flipped, and but a bad contract, 16 mil or so a year. And the Bulls, because they're stupid and because Arturas Karnisovas is dumb and does not know what he's doing, he didn't take that contract. He was afraid they would go into the luxury tax, but I'm going to keep saying this because it needs to be reiterated every time I make a point proving it. I'm going to reiterate it again. Arturas Karnisovas does not know what he's doing, and he doesn't know that, oh my God, you would have gone over the salary cap by X amount. Well, you can get over the luxury tax amount, and he's not allowed to do that because of our terrible owner, Jerry Reinsdorf. But you're not paying the luxury tax based on your salary at the beginning of the year. It's calculated at the end. So at the trade deadline, to get under the tax, you could have gotten the first-round pick swap that Sacramento gave to San Antonio for taking Harrison Barnes. You could have taken that. Then you would have gotten the first-round pick swap for taking a bad contract. Just like when they signed DeRozan and had to give a bad contract and they pay San Antonio, Sacramento had to give a bad contract and they also paid to get off that bad contract. But once again, they paid San Antonio, not Chicago, because Karnisovas doesn't know what he's doing. You then at the trade deadline do what you need to. If you haven't been able to naturally shed that salary in a Zach or Vooch deal, you can then attach 2 second-round picks, right? 2 second-round picks in exchange for a first is an excellent deal. That's a deal a lot of teams make. Just like Philly just paid 2 second-round picks to get under the tax by dumping KJ Martin, the Bulls could have done the same to dump Javon Carter or whoever it was necessary to dump in order to get under that. So you can absolutely have gotten that value. But every single time, other teams get the value for taking on bad contracts. And Arturas Karnisovas, since he doesn't know what he's doing, doesn't get that value. I mean, that's infuriating, man. So
the only thing I'm gonna add there is the reason why I look at the Zach LaVine trade just a little bit slightly better in terms of, like, you were talking about, like, a guy that you can rehabilitate. That's Kevin Huerter to me. I think you can rehabilitate him. That's why you play him a little bit, get something for him, and flip him like either in the offseason or at the trade deadline. It's not too optimistic of a situation, but
Kevin Huerter's been in the league for 6 years. He was good for 3. He's been bad for the last 3. He's bad right now. He's bad. He's very bad. He gets paid the same money as Patrick Williams. Patrick Williams is leaps and bounds better than Kevin Huerter. Leaps and bounds.
Nah, I think at this point I'd rather play Kevin Huerter than Patrick
No,
Williams.
he does nothing. Kevin Huerter can't shoot.
I've completely given up on Patrick.
It doesn't matter, dude. You have to analyze the player. What does Kevin Huerter do? What does he do? Why would you play him? What does he do well?
Well, hopefully his shooting improves.
But he doesn't shoot. He doesn't shoot well. That's what he's supposed to do. But you've had 2+ seasons of him not shooting well. So he doesn't shoot.
No, wasn't he having a good shooting season last year? I could have sworn.
No, he's at 32% or something this year. I don't know what he is. He was last year. He was just as bad. He dropped out of the rotation last year.
I don't recall.
They dropped him from the starting lineup and then dropped him from the rotation. I mean, Kevin Huerter is bad, and he makes the same money as Patrick Williams. Patrick Williams is not good at many things. He sucks, but he can shoot.
Yeah.
If you want someone who can shoot, just play Patrick Williams and tell him not to do anything but shoot, which is what I've been screaming for about a year and a half now.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't even trust Patrick's shooting. Period. Like
he shoots over 40%. Kevin Huerter shoots 30.
Because he probably takes less shots than Kevin Huerter.
All right,
we could look it up.
No, come on.
We can look it up.
You're gonna say you want to play Kevin Huerter over Patrick Williams because Kevin Huerter can shoot. When Kevin Huerter can't shoot, hasn't been able to shoot in years, and Patrick Williams, the only thing he does well is shoot. Doesn't do it often, but he shoots.
It's a higher percentage but less volume. How many shots Kevin Huerter put it up versus Patrick Williams?
Yeah, we should pull up. Well, I guarantee you not that many because
if Patrick Williams is shooting 4 3-point shots a game, he's only making like 1.5 of them, like.
But that's Kevin basically what he shoots, about 4 a game, I think. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But if Kevin Huerter is putting up like 8 shots and he's still making 3, guess what? He's still making more points than Patrick Williams.
So let's see, Kevin Huerter this year from 3-point percentage is 30.2%. Ouch, that's worse than I thought it was.
Yeah.
0.8 win shares. He's 10.6 PER. God, that's brutal. All right, let's see. Shooting from last year. I'm on Basketball Reference, by the way.
Yeah,
Basketball
Reference is usually one of the better spots to go to get these stats.
Yeah, 3-pointers attempted per year, 24, 25. Okay, sure. So Patrick Williams is not shooting an ideal amount of threes, right? Probably about 4 a game. How many threes? I'll give you a guess. How many threes is Kevin Huerter shooting per game this year?
I'm gonna say maybe 6.
Guess again.
Okay. Gonna say maybe 8 then.
Oh boy, no. He's shooting 4.8.
Oh.
So he's shooting 1 more 3 per game than Patrick Williams.
Okay.
Let's see.
Fair enough.
Actually, I take that back. Patrick Williams this year is shooting basically the same number of threes per game as Kevin Huerter.
Okay.
He's shooting 4.6.
Yeah, the thing though with Patrick
last year, how many threes per game did Kevin Huerter shoot?
I'm gonna go back to my 6.
Nope. About a little bit more than he's shooting this year, 5.3.
All right.
So, and he shot 36% last year. He's shooting 30% this year.
36% isn't too terrible.
30% is terrible. What are you talking about?
No, I thought you said 36% last season.
Last season, yeah, 30%.
Exactly.
30% is terrible.
Yeah, that's what I said.
Yeah.
30. Yeah. That's what I said, Bosh. I said 36% isn't terrible.
Okay, I thought you said 30.
No. 30 is horrible.
Yeah,
30 is horrible. If you're shooting 30%, don't shoot it at all. Just hold it until someone can save you. Yeah. But look, my whole thing. Obviously, Pat's just there, right? He is what it is. They're not going to take minutes from each other. Kevin Huerter is just going to take some of the leftover Zach LaVine minutes, and that's if he produces. So he's got a couple games here to see if he's going to produce, and then we'll see what we do with him on the off season in the summer.
Well, we can't do anything with him in the off season. He makes $18 million a year.
Isn't he an expiring contract at that point? Isn't that an experiment? He's an expiring contract at that point. Well, I think that's a good point. A good point to bring up now. The contract situations for these players, because you actually shared this with me. Lonzo Ball signed a 2-year contract extension, so he's signed for 2 more years, about 10 million average for both of them. Niko Vucevic has 1 more year, so he's an expiring contract. Patrick Williams is here for the foreseeable future. Kevin Huerter, this is what I meant. He's going to be a free agent next summer. So in this, like next year. So what I said, and you might have misunderstood, is I'm saying after the season this summer he's going to be an expiring contract, so it'd be easier to move. Same
He'll
thing with
be
Zach
easier to
Collins.
move if they take back. We can move them next year, but to take back worse salary. You know,
And
we're only going
hopefully
to move them to take back worse salary. And Karnisovas is time and again proven in repeated trades he doesn't understand that concept. So I don't know what gives you the confidence that he's going to all of a sudden learn that lesson.
this isn't the conversation about confidence. Okay, so we're going back and forth on this podcast. I'm not talking about what they're actually going to do. I'm talking about what they should be doing. This is what I want to see from them. I don't fully believe that they are.
But okay, in
able
the
to do
offseason,
anything.
if they didn't have that 18 million, they would be better off. You're more able to take back bad salary if you're not saddled with it.
Yes,
right?
100%. It would be
So
much
both
better.
Collins and Herter each make 18 mil. That's 36. But in order to get that 36
18
out,
yeah.
in order to move that 36 next year, we need to either take back worse money to get an asset, or we need to attach an asset like that proposed Zion trade you said, where we would attach an asset in order to get off.
And that's what I meant. That's why, like, I'm just trying to like figure out what they could possibly do instead of doing what they should possibly do. That's why I brought up the Zion Williamson possible trade, because at that point, that's expiring contract. You send that to New Orleans, they're like, okay, yeah, this is 36 million dead salary, but it comes off the books at the end of the season, and maybe at the deadline we could flip them for an asset for taking longer term contract. Or even the Bulls could do that. I would honestly look, if you can't trade them and get some sort of asset and take on longer term contract, then that's where like this isn't so horrible of a trade. So like, let's say you trade Kevin Huerter, right, and you take in a longer term contract, taking some cap space because you're not going to be good, so you got to fill up your cap space anyways. And you know that's part of the new CBA. You kind of have to in the salary cap. You have to go ahead and use the money. You can't just like not have like all this like free space in the salary cap. So you take in a dead salary, you get some assets, whether there's some second round picks or pick swaps or what have you, or maybe you're a facilitator in the 3-team trade in the summer.
No, but that's exactly it. You can actually be more of a facilitator in the summer when you do have cap space.
No,
because then you don't have to send money back.
That's what I'm saying. So you're 100% correct. We'd be better off just having some dead salary for this year that would expire at the summer.
That would have expired, right?
Yes,
like Trey Jones is expired.
However, that looks like what will be the outcome for next offseason. It looks like this is a wasted season. I've already in my mind pictured this is a dead season. The only thing I have to look forward to this season is to watch the young guy Montes Bucelis. That's why I said we're watching this man's My Career on live TV. That's literally all this is. Well, we may or may not like get some assets for Kobe White, Ayo Dosunmu, or even Nikola Vucevic. But
Kobe White just nailed like a logo 3 to push the Bulls lead to 23, by the way. That was pretty sweet.
I love Kobe White. I'm going to miss him. You know who should sign him? Orlando. Orlando could use him tremendously.
Honestly, don't know what Orlando is doing, not getting anyone. But yeah, I mean, honestly, they should have even... I don't know how well Trey Jones has actually been playing this year, but if they could have gotten him from us for nothing, they should have done that. But next to nothing.
I mean,
at any rate,
Trey Jones looked decent in the first.
He looked decent last year when I saw him play. I haven't seen him play much this year, but
just in the current game alone right now with the Golden State Warriors, he looked pretty decent. The couple minutes I did see of him.
Yeah.
Yes.
Look, so look, we traded Zach LaVine. They got their own pick back. They only saved $9 million in salary. And for next year, for next year, that's assuming they don't re-sign Trey Jones, which again I think would be dumb unless they were planning on flipping Trey Jones, but they're not going to do that. They don't know what the meaning of that is. They've never done it. He's been here for it'll be 5 years, and he's never done that. He's never flipped a player for a positive asset. He's only paid to get rid of players. That's it. That's all he does players who he's not going to use. He either lets them sit on the roster and expire, or he pays to dump them to another team.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because shout out to Torrey Craig. He was one of the 2 players that got bought out to facilitate that 3-team trade, and then now he's on the Boston Celtics. So good for him, but it's still fuck Boston. I would have rather him go anywhere else.
Craig is if Kardashevis had been smart. Do you want to put up the little graphic I had with how much cap space is available, or not cap space, luxury? Thank you. This is how much room we have under the luxury tax, $9.5 million.
Yeah.
So you can see that tax space 2024, 2025. It's the darker highlighted bar showing about 9.4. Before all of these trades, we had about 4 mil. Now, again, had they taken on, Harrison Barnes and gotten the unprotected 2031 first round pick swap from Sacramento, they would have had that asset, and they would have only needed to dump, like a $6-7 million salary, which is about what Javon Carter makes, by the way. And they would have been under that tax threshold. Regardless, they had 9.4. Well, a team that is handcuffed and handicapped, and everybody saw how by being in the second apron, which is highly restrictive in terms of how it allows you to make trades and aggregate players and not aggregate players, et cetera, and what kind of salary, even what kind of free agents you can sign on the buyout market. It restricts you from all of that once you spend so much as you go into the second apron. That's where Phoenix is. And so Phoenix, and not to mention the amount of money they're paying for every dollar that they're over. It's a ton. So every dollar they shed, they save like 2 times that or 2.5 times that in luxury tax payments. So what they could have done is traded Torrey Craig on a near minimum contract to Phoenix and taken back an additional 9 million salary without us paying the tax, and yet that would have saved a ton for Phoenix. I don't remember who, but it could have been someone you just take on to waive, like they just waived. I think maybe Grayson Allen. It doesn't matter. Whatever, you save them the money and you get.
No, fuck that. We're not trading for Grayson Allen ever. I don't give a fuck how much it helps our financial situation.
Well, then you're well
Allen.
At home for Bulls GM. Congratulations, Vince. He'll probably be the next one hired, because that's the mentality. Is forget it. We're not going to do any moves in order to get any capital. And yeah, they could have taken back a bad contract or a contract from Phoenix in order to get them under the tax, giving them Torrey Craig in return, a useful, valuable player making far less money, and they could have taken back a pick in exchange. Maybe one of the crappier firsts they got, or even seconds, whatever it is, from Phoenix.
One of those Horcrux picks. Huh?
Exactly, one of the Horcrux picks. But, they didn't do that. They just waived Torrey Craig instead because Arturas isn't creative enough and not bold enough to try to make those moves. Just frustrating. So, okay, we saved $9 million off of next year's salary because of trade. Yeah. Again, assuming we don't re-sign Trey Jones, because we took back 18 mil each on Collins and Herter, and by trading Zach LaVine. Now, in the summer, I think it's undeniable Zach would have more value. There'd be more teams to trade him to because books get a little cleaner as other contracts come off. The salary cap goes up. Fewer teams have restrictions. So more teams can trade for him. But more importantly, Zach would only then have 1 year plus a player option remaining on his contract. With 1 year and one plus a player option, that's essentially an expiring contract, especially if the trading team can kind of come to an extension agreement where they extend him for longer, but get him to take less money per year or something.
Which is exactly where Jimmy Butler was this offseason, with like a year left plus the player option. So that would have been the exact same situation. Who knows what they would have been able to like get back in return. But I think in that scenario, Zach would dictate more of where he's going. So I think your options would have been a little bit more limited. I think right now Zach
on the
said
positive
that he didn't want
side,
to
Zach
go.
seems to be open to pretty much anywhere but Chicago because he's smart, and also is pretty open to all the West Coast teams.
No, I don't know. I feel like if you send him over to like, let's say, a Detroit and Orlando, I think he'd be like.
No, I'm talking about the West Coast teams. Yeah.
Well,
and I think
if you send him to San Antonio, I wouldn't be mad.
Yeah. I mean, the point is, would he be mad? He seemed to not be mad at anything. He was fine with any of it, as long as he went to a contending option. Like, didn't seem fine with Detroit, but I think Orlando, San Antonio, any of those would be fine.
I mean, hey, he looked pretty content being with the Sacramento Kings, and they're dog shit right now in terms of roster construction. So
that's what I mean, right? So right now, the record they have, if you can put up the lottery odds right now,
got it.
Because we traded for was a pick that is top 10 protected this year. Where are they with having Zach LaVine on the roster for most of the year so far. This is before today's games. The Bulls right now are number 8 in terms of worst records in terms of lottery seeding. In order to keep that pick at number 10, look at that. Look at the percentages as to what the percentages are through number 10. So they would have to be 11th or worse in order for them to lose that pick this year. If they stay right where they are and get no worse, they have a 0.4% chance of losing that pick. It's virtually guaranteed to convey this year because they're not getting better. They just traded away their best player. And they're starting a rookie now. And other teams behind them are still somehow sort of trying to win, like Philly, sort of kind of still
Philly, I'm
win.
waiting for them to like jump us in the standings, but they keep fucking up, man. I swear.
But like despite all that, they're 1 game behind us. They're 1 game behind, despite how bad they've been, despite the fact that Caleb Martin missed most of the year, that their only good spot of the season, their rookie tore his Achilles or whatever, and he's out for the year, despite the fact that Joel Embiid missed 80% of the year, and Paul George and Tyrese Maxey began the year.
Is a travesty this year. It's sad to see.
He's been awful, but he's playing for some reason with a finger that has a splint and is supposed to not have the splint come off for the next 2 months. I don't know why he's playing. Regardless, they seem to be trying still. They're only a game behind the Bulls, and that was the Bulls with Zach LaVine, right? So they're even more guaranteed. Yeah.
What's crazy though is they were recording this in the...
Dude, you should have seen the throwdown Buzelis just had.
Oh, god damn it, man. But speaking of which, that's what I want to like mention right now. We're recording in the middle of the Golden State versus Chicago Bulls game. And they're up, aren't they, by double digits?
Yeah.
How much are they up by? What's the score currently?
About 16.
About 16? Okay, there we go. They're beating the Golden State Warriors. What quarter are they in? The third?
Yeah.
Exactly. So unless they have a complete meltdown, it looks like they're going to beat the Golden State Warriors.
The Bulls haven't lost every game to get to this point. They've beaten the Celtics. They've beaten the Bucks. They've beaten all kinds of teams. It doesn't matter. They're a bad team. They're an inconsistent team. They're not terrible, but they're bad. They're well under 500. They're a bad team. They're going to have some wins here and there. By the way, Golden State's not a good team. Okay, so let's not forget that.
No, but they're a better team than the Bulls.
Yeah, they're a 500 team. They're just a okay 500 team. Yeah, bad teams beat okay teams all the time. This isn't some one game is not some sort of indicator that the Bulls are going to be going on some winning streak here.
No, I'm not saying they're going to be on some winning streak, but they're going to mess it up by winning games they have no business winning. Like
they've done that already. They're 8th worst. They have almost a guaranteed a chance of keeping that pick had they not traded for it already.
I don't know, man.
They've been winning games.
I'm looking at worst possible scenario. Worst possible scenarios, they stay in that 10th seed and they continue going into the plan. What?
The graphic we just had.
The
lottery odds.
Okay.
Yeah. You play odds, percentages. Those percentages virtually guarantee you keeping your pick.
For this season, yes.
You don't
play
out the season based on some monkey's paw that like the worst possible outcome. Well, what if that happens? No, you play percentages, you play odds, and those odds are very good. By the way,
current season, we've had this conversation already. For this current season, even if they didn't trade for their pick back, they were going to retain it regardless. There was no way they fell out of the top 10. The next 2 seasons after that would have been top 8 protected, and I don't believe they would have been able to. They would have either lost in 2026 or they would have lost in 27. But they would have lost that pick. They would have conveyed that.
Come to me on one hand and say this is what the Bulls should do, and then this is why I'm analyzing them by what they should do, and then say on the other hand, they can't do it because in this scenario, this is what the Bulls should do. Okay, every single team that is a protected pick that then decides to tank to keep the protected pick keeps it.
But they're not going to tank. The Bulls aren't going to tank.
But that's the point.
They're not going to.
Trading Zach LaVine, that's your best player. You're tanking. All you have to do now is trade Vucevic, and you're done. You have no shot at losing the pick next year. You're going to be one of the worst teams. That's my point. You operate not based on what you can't do. Philly can't tank, like unless they sit everybody, because they have too many good players, and as shitty as they are, to be 6th worst is very difficult. Like they would have to literally sit Maxey and Embiid and George and everybody, right? The Bulls don't have that option. They're trading their good players regardless. They need to trade them regardless. They just did. They traded their best player. So they are tanking. Regardless of whether they're trying to or not, they're trading their best players. So they're tanking. You look. Why did Brooklyn not tank those previous years? Why did they try to trade Mikal Bridges and then make sure they get their own pick back? It's not because their pick was protected. If their pick was protected, Brooklyn would have sold all their vets and tanked, and they would have kept the pick. They would not have needed to trade for it. They traded for their pick back, not because they're Chicago and they're so fucking incompetent that they can't keep it, but because it was unprotected. It was unprotected. They had no shot at keeping the pick no matter what they did. That's why they didn't tank, right? That's why Brooklyn didn't tank, because they couldn't keep their pick. When you can keep your pick, you tank and you keep it. Everyone does that.
There was definitely an avenue for them to like not make that the saving grace. Like I think they just kind of took like scraps. They took scraps
let me
for
point
Zach
one
LaVine.
more thing to you. Like,
okay,
we're trading Zach LaVine. By virtue of trading Zach LaVine, you are tanking. You're getting worse. By virtue of trading him, you're assuring yourself that you keep this year's pick, which you're already keeping. You're already bad enough to keep with him. You're definitely keeping it by trading him, not for your own pick to anyone. You trade him for nothing and you still keep that pick. But by trading him, you're also pretty much guaranteeing you're going to keep next year's pick, because you're already 8th worst with him. Next year, several of the teams below the Bulls in the standings are improving. By not having Zach LaVine at all next year, the Bulls would be worse. They would be, I don't know what devolving is the word, whatever the opposite of improving is.
I think the only team that's like below them or slightly above them that I fear would get worse would be the Atlanta Hawks, because I do foresee a Trae Young trade coming at some point in time.
Right,
no,
possibly. But I think with the exception of the Wizards, right? And like
the Wizards are god awful. They're
right, but but they're on purpose. They're awful.
Yes, I know. No, they're god awful on purpose. And then the Hornets too. Like the Hornets, the Wizards, those are two names that for sure I don't foresee them being, or in Brooklyn. Those are the three names. But like I don't think we'll be worse than those three periods. So
right, but you to keep a top 8 pick, you don't need to be the bottom 3. You don't need the
no. The odds are different. You just kind of have to be like the bottom 4 or 5, and then you still
5. Five would guarantee you the pick.
Yeah, because like look at what's happened the last couple of drafts. Like poor Detroit and other teams that have had the number 1 pick, they fall all the way to 5. Actually, I think that happened to Detroit last.
Yeah,
summer.
It's happened to Detroit 2 years in a row, basically.
That's tough.
Which is nuts. But that's like the peril of flattened lottery odds. At the top, like you're not as likely to get a top 3 pick by being one of the worst 3.
Right.
But on the plus side, you're far more likely. The Bulls are far more likely to get a top pick than they are to lose their pick even next year.
Yeah. So
like by the odds, their percentages of landing a number 1 pick are higher.
Like you mentioned, like it doesn't take like a rocket scientist to come in here, look at the odds, and figure out what they have to do to retain those picks if that's exactly what they're trying to do. However,
it's a 9-point game now.
Goddamn. Me personally, I don't believe that. Part of it is Karnisovas obviously like not being like good, but also another part of it is Jerry Reinsdorf wanting them to be just good enough to give people hope that they'll be in the play-in, so people show up. So it's an issue with that once.
No, sure, but I just pulled up a report from last. I was looking for this a report on this trade deadline, and I accidentally pulled one up on last trade deadline. And I was like, wrong trade deadline, by Casey Johnson last year when he was still with NBC Sports Chicago. Basically, it said Reinsdorf had given Karnisovas the full leeway to tear down the entire roster if he wanted to. He gave him clearance to do a full leeway. Casey's a good reporter. He doesn't say shit that's not. He may be too optimistic on the way he spins things, but he reports what he knows. Just like he reported. Shout out to him for breaking the league breaking story, however many 15 years ago when John Paxson went in and choked the fuck out of Vinny Del Negro in the coach's office, because that was a Casey Johnson report. So the man knows he does good reporting.
No, you're right. Yeah. I'm just like the way I'm looking at things. That's what I was saying. Whether it's
my point is like Reinsdorf for this trade deadline is irrelevant. Like as shitty as he is, that's something for us to talk about. And we talked about it all offseason. We talk about it all the time. I'm on record on the podcast many times, and many other people's podcasts even, talking about how shitty Jerry Reinsdorf is. But this deadline is completely on the head of Arturas Karnisovas, because none of the things he did really affect that Reinsdorfian view, other than him like not taking on salary to go into the luxury tax, which wouldn't have made sense anyway,
Right.
except for So that's why I'm saying Reinsdorf is irrelevant, man. We shouldn't even bring him up in this discussion. This discussion is about the trade deadline, and this is totally on Arturas Karnisovas's head. I mean, look,
It is.
because here's
I
the thing.
understand that it is.
Not only does trading Zach to anybody get you that pick that you just traded him for, right? So if you had gotten back a second round pick, like a 2 second round picks from another team, that would be a better haul to me than getting your own pick back. But forget that discussion for a minute. If they simply hung on to Zach, because I believe he has more value in the offseason, and they traded Vucevic, right? Vucevic, a rapidly declining asset from the moment he was signed to the deal that he's on right now. The moment he signed that deal, everybody around the league said, oh my God, I would never trade for that deal. Is having a career year, and a number of teams have, needs at the center spot, and where
it's not that teams weren't willing to trade for him, because obviously the reports were out that the Lakers and even the Golden State Warriors made a last ditch.
Well, that's what I'm getting to. I'm getting because that affects the Zach trade. That affects the Zach trade. He's a rapidly declining asset. Other teams are actually interested. This is your chance to get off of this negative fucking asset. Okay, he's not anything for your future. He's not he's not a building block. He's 35. This is your chance to sell high and get whatever you can. Because even if let's say he takes because the reason he didn't deal those reportedly is because he was holding out for a first round pick for Vucevic, because this delusional moron traded a first
idiotic.
round pick.
It's idiotic. Well, he technically traded 2.
Traded 2 and traded 3, counting Wendell.
I don't count Wendell. At that point, he was like, what, 3 seasons into? He wasn't young enough for him to be like, oh, this is a first round pick as well. So look, because you kind of have to match salary and kind of have to give him a player to get a player back. But my whole issue was that I don't think they're going to be doing something smart. The reason why they made the trades they made, the reason why they wanted their pick back, I don't believe that they had any fear that they were going to lose the pick. I'm now of the belief that they just wanted control of their pick going forward. They just wanted control of their pick going forward, because they're going to use because they want to have the flexibility and the freedom to trade future first round picks to get other guys so they can continue in this limbo state, because I don't think they're going to rebuild.
Not why I think they wanted it back, but we'll get to that, because I'm saying that Vooch, if you had traded Vooch, as you should, because he's not part of your future, he was a negative value up until right now, is the first time you could have gotten positive value for him on a trade, basically since he signed since you traded for him to become a Bull. So this is the first time they could have gotten positive value. If what you were getting was just 2 seconds, he should have done it instantly. Then he would have had more leverage in the Zach trade.
For Vucevic, yes.
I'll tell you what, Nikola Vucevic is more affecting the Bulls winning this year, and whether or not they would have kept that pick, than Zach, because Vooch doesn't miss games. He plays every single game.
He does.
And if
like
you
said,
had traded him,
career season.
without any viable backup center, because JLan Smith is actually, as well as he shot the ball, he's not really been good defensively, like in an all-around sense. He's not been good. I like him. That's not the point. And he also can't play like full-time minutes. They had no real replacement. You would be worse just by trading Vooch. You take in the positive assets, the 2 second-round picks, by trading Vooch. You're already guaranteeing your pick this year and next year.
Yes, you're right. Yeah.
And then you still have the possibility of moving Zach for more positive value down the road if you didn't take a better deal. Which I mean, still
like Zach LaVine himself. Zach LaVine himself was talking about how like he wanted to say he didn't want to move. He was looking forward to being on the Bulls going forward. So like, if that's the situation, yes, I get it. He's the better player. However, like you mentioned, like you got to get off of Vucevic's contract because he's there all the time. Like I'm not disagreeing with you, man. Like you're 100% right. I don't like any of the moves
that's what I was trying to lay out is why, like, just this trade in many different facets is bad and actually didn't get you any positive value and was worse than the other things you could have done. Because again, trading Vooch would have allowed you to keep Zach's value for next and make a plan in the offseason. Vooch is going to have less value in the offseason. I mean, he'll be an expiring, so he'll be easier to move, but that doesn't mean other teams are going to pay you a positive value to get him. It just means you're not going to have to pay much to get rid of him if you need to.
Yeah.
That's all. It doesn't mean you're going to bring someone in. And it makes your team worse in both this year and next year more than trading Zach does, because Zach misses games. Zach, is as much value as he's had this year, he's actually been really good. He's actually contributed to winning. They have other people to play the position, and the role Zach plays, we have nobody to play the role Vooch plays. So trading him guarantees you keep that pick. That's my real problem with that. So, and by the way, as a side effect of this deal, it actually continues to benefit San Antonio the most, because you've made Sacramento, who I think this trade is actually good for overall. I came around on him, in our last podcast. I kind of said that when we recapped their part of the trade.
It's good that they got Zach LaVine. If they don't have a move or a plan in place to move off of DeMar's contract this summer, then I think they're just like a complacent team.
Yeah, but even if they don't, they still have all three of them expiring at the same time, basically, right? Like 2 years from now, all of them come off the books, essentially.
With all the more reason they should get rid of DeMar DeRozan. But
I'm saying, like, if you don't, you have like a 2-year window where you can compete with this group and then rebuild, right? You don't have to like artificially get off of anyone. At the same time, you can. Yeah,
I think they definitely need to move DeMar. If this is going to be the team, you got Simotis, you got Zach LaVine, you definitely have to move DeMar. Like, I don't think if it, like, we talked about it. Like, we saw this story.
No, I know it doesn't
out
fit.
In Chicago.
It doesn't fit.
Work. It doesn't work.
No, but it's a competitive-ish team to watch,
especially
right?
Especially with Malik Monk on the team as well. Like, you got three balls. You got three guys that need the ball, and not enough of them to go around. But regardless of the fact, not
relitigating Sacramento's point part of this. I want to say though that Sacramento basically that they upped they're not going to be rebuilding regardless until at least 2 years from now, when all these guys come off the books, right? At that point, they may even try to retool. Maybe this offseason, like
with Sacramento too. Like, I think they're one of those franchises that they don't have the luxury to just like tank it. Well,
it doesn't matter, because in 2 years they may try to compete and be mid and make the play-in team, but they're not going to have much of a future at that point.
No, they don't have much of a future, but I think a lot of Sacramento Kings fans, myself included, you just kind of want to see a competitive, fun team on the court, whether they win the championship or not. Like, every franchise, every fan base has a different perspective,
right?
And
Vince,
has like
the clock on that runs out in a couple of years, right? Like, they're going to have
exactly. So they're just going to do that for a couple of years, and then they'll be forced to rebuild.
Then they'll be forced.
They'll be forced
just by circumstances.
We're agreeing.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, but
no, we're agreeing.
And therefore, San Antonio gets the best benefit of this trade, because Sacramento, by taking Zach, is now on this path that they're going to be on for 2 years. That means they don't start a rebuild at the earliest until 2028, 2027, 2028, that season, which means they'll be bad in 2031. They're not going to complete a rebuild in 3 years and be back to being a player. In 2031, that unprotected pick swap they got in the DeMar deal that we should have gotten, that the Bulls should have gotten, becomes more valuable right now because they have Zach. Because it pushes their time to start a rebuild forward by a couple years, which means they won't get started for a couple years, which means they're more likely to be terrible in 2031.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? So this trade, the Zach trade, forgetting about the Fox part of it that's San Antonio is getting, just Bulls trading Zach to Sacramento also helps San Antonio. Like, it helps the pick that they already got in the summer from Sacramento. So that it's even more frustrating that that's the team that, in my opinion, benefited the most by the Bulls trading Zach LaVine to the Kings.
Yeah, no, everyone benefited.
I don't even see like how, like, if you look at where the picks are and who is getting what, I don't even think that's arguable, like, at all. Yeah. Based on where the team standings are, who was already in line to get what pick, and who holds other teams' picks. This is an all around terrible, one of the worst Bulls trades. I mean, Vucevic and LaVine both are awful trades that this front office has made that are tough to find a comp for. Going back to the only worst trades are like the one that I was in favor of course, when Paxson traded the rights to drafting LaMarcus Aldridge for Tyrese Thomas.
Oh my god.
Yeah,
I mean,
I was in favor of that, so I can't
the
claim.
only positive about that is that if we had LaMarcus Aldridge, there's no way we would have even
We would've
lugged
gotten
into
Derrick
Derrick.
Rose.
There's
Yeah.
no way.
Yeah.
So I would have rather just had the couple years of Derrick Rose that we did versus like prime.
I don't know, the way
Aldridge.
that Bulls team fell apart, that Aldridge would have been on, that Tyrese Thomas was a part of. I think they may have gotten Rose anyway. They didn't have exactly great odds of getting him in the first place.
No.
So
No, they didn't. But yeah, man. Speaking of odds, like now we're going to the draft. They guarantee they're gonna have their pick going forward. There's gonna be a couple names. Hopefully, they're now in the Cooper Flag sweepstakes if they get low enough or get lucky in the lottery. So I think now going forward is that we have to prioritize moving Vooch at the summer in the offseason. You have to go ahead and see what your value is for Kobe White and Ayo Dosunmu. If you're keeping both of them cool. Trey Jones, figure out what the fuck you want to do with Trey Jones. Either trade him or go ahead.
I mean, they would have to I don't think there's anything to do. You either resign him or let him walk, because
that's what I meant.
I don't
that's
really
what I
see
meant.
a sign and trade possibility.
I mean, if there's like a playoff contender that wants to go ahead and like pick him up for something, then sure.
So look, we've mostly covered. I mean, I think we've pretty well covered my issue with the Zach LaVine trade. Why it was so much worse than I think people initially reacted to it, as if like, oh great, they finally moved on. No, that was a really bad trade. I've given my reasons for why I think so. Yeah, and even while we may disagree on like some of the what happens with the pick, in following years or the lottery odds, I think mostly you agree with me that was a bad trade.
No, it was a bad trade, and I never argued with you on the point that it was a bad trade. I always argued as to whether I would rather just have a bunch of dead salary, like a bunch of expiring contracts and no compensation. I valued the control of the pick even more so than second round picks. The second round picks aren't.
Well, my point was mostly that we could have gotten a different positive value from Zach and still gotten this pick. So we've covered that. Definitely we've covered why I think Vucevic, like if you didn't have a better deal for Zach, especially, it made it even more imperative that you do a Vucevic deal for anything, any positive value. It would have been awesome. It would have been way, way better.
If you were able to get like Kevon Looney and Moses Moody, or maybe even Kevon Looney and Gary Payton.
Yeah,
like
and
in
like
exchange for
2
Vooch.
seconds or 1 second. Yeah, 2 seconds is I think what Golden State was prepared to offer, because they've got several seconds.
They should have just taken the 2 seconds.
Yeah.
Kevon Looney. Kevon Looney could have started taking the spot, the minutes, just the minutes.
Right. Just a minutes eater. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you didn't want to take on Gary Payton, I'm sure you could have unloaded him or buy him out because it's an expiring at the end of the year.
Yeah, perfectly fine. So yeah, that's frustrating. I mean, moving on to what I think the other priority should have been, Kobe White. We love Kobe White. Kobe White has probably the Bulls moment of the season with the game-winning dunk on Victor Wembanyama. Just epic, just wicked freaking dunk. After Kobe. A clutch layup, he also hit around Wembanyama. We love Kobe.
Yes.
It would really hurt to see Kobe White go. But that's the situation the Bulls have put themselves in. The management has put themselves in, because he's the only player with real positive value who could get you a real return. Probably at least 2 first-round picks, maybe even 1 like unprotected good first, or like likely to be lottery first. I mean, that's how good he is. And the fact that he's on a very cheap contract, makes like $12 million a year. I think he fits basically into like a mid-level exception for most teams. I mean, that makes him extremely valuable to competing teams right now, just like Alex Caruso was extremely valuable because he only made $9 million a year at the time. This means a contending team doesn't have to dump a good contributing player, and they can even possibly keep him and even, maybe re-sign him going into the future. Whereas the Bulls, next year, Kobe White will be an expiring contract, and the Bulls can't extend him because he doesn't make enough money as to what his likely salary will be that he'll accept in an extension. So you can't extend him because you can only give so much of a raise in an extension. You have to let him get all the way to free agency and then pay him his market rate, which is going to be a lot of money and probably not a type of contract that a rebuilding team should really have in the books. Now, if they keep Kobe White, will I be pissed about it? I mean, no. I like Kobe. I think he'll be good for the growth, right? Like, he's a good leader. Like he's shown a lot of improvement in defense. He's more vocal than Zach was. He like
Yeah.
rallies the guys, gets them together in the off season.
I like Kobe on the team for sure, but I think I think we have to move off of him. And more so as a service to Kobe, like because he's done such a great job in
He deserves to
rehabbing.
be in a winning situation.
The same thing with Lonzo Ball. That's why I was
Yeah.
like, if they don't trade Lonzo Ball and they just let his contract expire, good. Let him go to a different team. I wanted him to get traded for the simple fact that I wanted him to go to a contending team. Because just like Alex Caruso, as much as it hurt me to see Caruso go, I'm very excited and happy for him. He landed in OKC, a team that desperately needed his services, and he got a contract extension, the most money he's ever made in his career, and he's earned every fucking penny of it. The same thing goes for Kobe White and Lonzo Ball. I think Kobe White, I don't know, go to Miami. I don't know, fucking like somewhere that they'll actually be somewhat competent. Miami,
Orlando, Houston. I mean, there's a number of teams.
Houston, not so much because there's that logjam right now. Unless they trade Jalen Green or get off Fred VanVleet, there's too much. Like
I think Kobe's a better decision maker in the clutch than Green is. I think that he'd be a better complement there. Green's defense, we'll see. But regardless, like there's a number of teams where Kobe would be good, and I hope he gets that chance.
Minnesota could use his ball.
Yeah, Minnesota could definitely use him.
He could definitely fill a role there. There's a lot of teams that could definitely.
But the point being, like next year, it's going to be he's not going to get as much value because he's 1 year away from getting properly paid. Whereas if you traded him in this trade deadline,
you would have gotten the most bang for your buck.
Yep, the team trading for him would have had him in 2 playoff runs, whereas next year is just 1, and then contract.
Kobe White, out of all the players on the Bulls at the time of the trade deadline or prior to the deadline, he's the one that would have given you the most value, the most return for your investment, the most assets, and they chose
just like Caruso last year would have. But yeah.
Watch, we're gonna end up trading him for a guy that's on the 1 year deal before he becomes a restricted free agent. Then we're gonna have to pay him, Giddey and Patrick Williams. Like, oh my god.
And the thing with Kobe is, if he's best with the ball in his hands. If you're rebuilding and you have a bunch of young players, pass first point guards are better for their development. It's why if they don't overpay Giddey, I don't hate him being here, just because if you have got young players, it's good to have a guy who can get them the ball. Same with Lonzo, but Kobe, if you trade him, you more open up the shots for those developing players and you get positive assets in return. That would have been the way I would have gone. So, we'll see how that goes. I mean, to me, I think I've laid it out. We got to it earlier, but Arturas Karnisovas sucks. He doesn't know what he's doing. No matter what direction he picks, he doesn't make the moves that are appropriate for that direction, whether it's rebuilding, whether it's contending, whether it's tanking. Because if he was contending, then you would have shored up the point guard spot in the past couple of years, not with, bench, plug the whole sort of point guards like Javon Carter, but with a real point guard. You're Chicago. You had the assets, you had the capability to make that trade. You had the market power, the money to make a trade to get a real point guard. He never did that. Then when he's tanking, he doesn't know how to tank. He doesn't get the value for his assets. He sells, pays to get rid of guys, doesn't get paid to take guys on, and he doesn't get, multiple draft picks. The problem. Yeah,
I can't tell you how many times on different podcasts, different YouTube, TikToks, social media tweets, whatever. I've seen so many times people talk about, and like front office executives and like people in the know of the NBA saying that whenever they get asked about like the top execs in the entire league, they always want to mention their worst execs, and the Bulls are first in line to be mentioned. They're one of the first ones to be mentioned.
There was an article, I tried to find it, I couldn't find it, but another podcast had quoted it, and they were saying, basically, it was like talking to other NBA GMs and executives about who the best executives were. And unprompted, because they weren't even asked about the worst, unprompted, multiple rival executives said, oh, well, you know who the worst is. It's Karnisovas, Chicago. It's impossible to deal with them. Karnisovas is not fun to deal with. He's not, he doesn't... he's basically not a congenial guy to talk to, and he asks for too much for his players, and he strings you along and then doesn't make a deal at the end. I mean, that's
what he did. That's what he did with the Vucevic situation in Golden State. It sounded like They could have did the Giddy Caruso trade at the deadline, and they would have gotten more draft compensation. They
Yep.
just and they ended up revisiting it in the summer, and it was just a straight up swap. That's what's going to happen with the Vucevic
Yeah.
stuff. That's what's
Yeah,
going to
he's
happen with.
probably going to go in the end, and we're going to get nothing, or like a second, or we're going to take back a worse contract for some reason. So that's for. I
He's
mean,
already
look
done
at
it.
the thing is for Drummond, Andre Drummond, that was a deal. Like Philly thought they had a deal
Two
done.
second rounders.
Yes,
Two
two
second
second
rounders
round
for him.
picks. And Karnisovas led them on up until the deadline to where they couldn't even make a second deal, like a backup deal, and
Right.
basically didn't complete the deal. So we didn't get the seconds. We lost Drummond for nothing, and we screwed Philly. How likely do you think it is in the future that Daryl Morey is gonna want to deal with Arturas Karnisovas?
On top of that, he ended up signing with Philly anyway. What the fuck?
Yeah, he went to Philly anyway. Now he's been bad, but
Yeah.
that's not the point of the point is like
No,
the
that's
deal
not the
that we
point.
had,
Yeah.
and that last year he was good and would have helped them, and they wanted him, and we strung them along, and then backed out at the last second. And Morey's not going to want to do like next time he's dealing with the Bulls, they're not going to be the ones he's prioritizing. That's going to be the we'll see, we'll get to it if we get to it.
Yeah,
Like,
no, they're just gonna be over there on the side, and if they get something, they get something out of us. They get something out of us. We've become the laughing stock of the NBA, and in all the front offices, players aren't going to want to come here. Front offices aren't going to want to deal with us, and we're just going to be stuck like getting these bad trades over and over and over
this
again.
gets to the Reinsdorf point you brought up earlier. To me, like this now, like decade of just incompetence and mismanagement, and like decades of just super cheapness, and the fact that you've just not taken advantage of. He got handed a global brand, an icon, a championship icon that has fans all around the world because of Michael Jordan, because of the championships, because of the Dream Team. And like one of the most iconic, clean logos, like one of the only logos in all of sports that has basically never changed. The one good thing the Bulls did was to never give in to that like 90s sort of trend of like, making your logo rad or whatever, right? Like trying to make it all cool and kind of ridiculous like every other team did. The Bulls logo is iconic. It's clean, it's fashionable. Like, the colors, the red, white, and black, everything about it, the look, the simple bull with the little frown lines, all of it is beautiful. And they have destroyed this brand. And to the
100%.
point where they're the only team. This is the biggest city in America, and they have it all to themselves. Because the other biggest cities in America split their teams. Like New York splits its, you can say the Nets don't really have a fan base, but regardless, they have another arena and a secondary option to spend your money on, buy merch or follow. Same with LA. You can say the Clippers, like the Lakers own LA, but the Clippers still draw fans. They draw money. They sell seats. You got to compete for that.
I mean,
in
even
Chicago,
to like a lesser extent, you have like other big teams in California, like the Golden State Warriors, and then you also have the Sacramento Kings that some fans like to root for as well. So
within the region, you've got a bunch of teams pulling.
Texas has 3 teams.
Yeah, at least you could. I almost count OKC as part of them because they're so close to Texas. But
well, that would have been 4.
Yeah, exactly. But no, the point is like he's got this giant market all to himself. He's got a global icon of a brand that is iconic not just for its history and its legacy, but for its look and its colors, its logo, its apparel. All of that is iconic, and they flushed it down the toilet. So to me, I have to ask you, Vince, because I know a lot of fans are how most people would answer this question, but I got to know from you. Let's say we did split this city. Let's say there was a second team. By the way, Memphis years ago wanted to do this. They were owned by Michael Heisley, a terrible owner also at the time, but he wanted to move that team to Chicago at one point, and it was blocked by Jerry Reinsdorf because when you're the owner of in an area, you get this veto power over another team coming in your area, and Reinsdorf vetoed that. But let's say it's not the Grizzlies; it's someone else, and Reinsdorf loses his veto power or whatever it is. If another team came in, would you switch your loyalties?
I wouldn't say more or less switch. It would depend on what they're doing, what they have on there.
So you'd give them a chance, right?
Exactly. So here's the thing with the Bulls.
Yeah.
they'd be in the background. They'd be sitting there, just like I just wouldn't give them too much of my energy anymore. I wouldn't care too much about it because now you have the other franchise. Because like if they're actually rebuilding properly, they have a young, promising talent, or they maybe if it's a team that's moving and they already have an established roster or something like that. I'd put more of my energy towards that. It'd be more split at the beginning. It'd be more 50-50. But given the front office, it eventually swing
Yeah,
the
that's
favor.
my thing is I
Yeah.
think I would as crazy as it is, like I have lived I love baseball. I love the Chicago Cubs. I love baseball. When the Bears were long ago, I used to love the Bears. That kind of died down a little bit, but
Yeah.
every time I thought, oh no, this is my favorite sport, my favorite team, then the
Hmm.
Bulls would make the playoffs with like a team
Yes.
of like underachievers of like Gordon and Heinrich and Dang and Nocioni, like the 8th seed. And I would
Yeah.
go to like Buffalo Wild Wings or some shit, right?
Yeah.
And just be in there with like random people, like, and I'm just screaming at the TV with complete strangers and like, becoming friends. And I would realize, no, I love the Bulls. I love
Yes.
basketball.
There's a
Like I
love
live
for
and
it.
die with this team. There's nothing better than when the Bulls are good and you're, they're in the playoffs. There's just nothing better, man, than those clutch
Yeah.
moments. Uh,
100%. It's
so but they've squandered that, dude. If another team came into Chicago, I think I would instantly give them like my more
Yeah, I give
of a
them my money,
chance.
more
Yeah,
of a chance for sure, because they still have that saving grace. They're new. You kind of they have that grace period,
yeah.
obviously. But I'll tell you
Dude,
this right now.
I even like I've thought about it sometimes. Like, what would I want? I already know the color scheme. I would want them to go after the Chicago flag color scheme, kind of like those Bull City editions from a few years ago with the
No, I've thought about it because I've long since made that franchise in like a league in 2K. I always call them Chicago Saints, but I do like the color scheme of like that gold with the white and black, kind of
like the Saints. Yeah,
like the Saints. Yeah, I really like the New
this
Orleans Saints
people,
colors.
this is like the fundamental reality of a Bulls fan.
Yeah,
I never talked to Vince about this before, never brought this up. But
no, it's
you
the
pull
first
up
time
a
we're
Bulls
actually having.
fans and a
Yeah,
Bulls fan dreams about a different team coming to his city. That like sums it up
well,
right there.
that's dream number two. The main dream would be for Jerry Reinsdorf to sell the team and have a fire sale and
Right,
actually
right.
actually be given a chance to support the Bulls, because the Bulls are always going to be my first love, and I'm going to always want them to succeed, especially that much more. The Jordan years, the scrappy Kirk Henrik, Ben Gordon, Lil
Yeah, but
Deng
given
era.
how unlikely it is that we're ever getting new ownership for this team,
Oh
seeing that
no,
as
no,
he told his kids that they should, when he dies, they should sell the Chicago White Sox but keep the Bulls. I mean, that was crushing when I read that news. That was horrible.
yeah. Well, maybe things will be better when Jerry's dead. That's
Yeah,
dark. That's very dark, but
I have a
that's where
proposal.
we're at.
I have a
Yes.
proposal, man.
Okay.
I think the city of Chicago should tax the Bulls, not like the way we tax entertainment tickets right now. They
Okay.
should directly tax the Bulls' profits. Like
Okay.
profits from the Chicago Bulls should be taxed by the city in addition to all the other taxes they collect. And then Jerry can cry about moving the team or whatever. I think if honestly, at this point, I would like for him to move the team.
No.
We'll keep the history just like fucking
No.
Charlotte and Seattle and put a new goddamn team here and give them the Bulls logo. Just
No.
get rid of this fucker, man. That's what I would
No.
want.
No. Get rid of him. Yes, but the NBA will never allow the Bulls to move. They're
Well,
too
yeah,
like
because it's Chicago. We'll fill that spot like that, man. It'll be instant.
yeah, yeah, but no, like you can't, because they'll keep the Bulls name. They just
No,
won't do the
not that
Chicago.
doesn't happen anymore, man. Moving teams now, the city keeps the shit. The city keeps everything.
No, it's a case by case basis, because like the Hornets.
Since Seattle, it's been the like pretty much like in Charlotte, like yeah, those two.
Charlotte got their name back, but that was
Right, Charlotte
because
got the name back, but after that, the NBA put out like because OKC, there was that whole controversy because they kept the Sonics history, but they weren't really
yeah,
keeping the logos. And the
yeah,
NBA came out and said, no, when Seattle gets a team, they're going to get the Sonics history and name.
yeah.
So that's pretty much the way things are going to go now, I think.
We'll see. We'll see.
But yeah,
I don't
that's how
know.
we end the Bulls
It's
segment.
it's
Dreaming about a different team coming into the city, or the owner passing away and being forced to sell the
yeah.
team, or
It's very doom and gloom here. So here's where I'm at, Ashley. I've long gone through stretches of this where I just like start investing in other franchises, other teams as well. You know this, like I'm a Kings fan just as much as I'm a
yeah,
Bulls
yeah,
fan. I'm much more of a Bulls fan than the Kings fans because I can't really watch the Kings games like that because they're on the West Coast, and then I'm not gonna pay for League Pass because fuck that, because you don't even get all the games anymore like you're supposed to.
yeah.
So,
I think if you do
but
League Pass for just one team when you're out of market, that could pay it. That's kind of worth it, I think.
maybe, and but one of the teams for sure that I'm looking forward to because it's going to be exciting, especially like in a year or two once LeBron's off, is the Lakers. I'm very much excited for the Luka Lakers experience. I'm looking forward to it. They're going to be a team that I
I'm so
can
mad at this shit, man.
that you can be mad. I'm okay. Kobe made me a part-time Lakers fan. It's okay. I want the Lakers to be good. I want the Bulls to be good. I want the Kings to be good. I want all those franchises to succeed. I want the Heat to be good. Those are the four teams I'll always support. But yeah, that's just kind of where it is. I
I'm
think,
glad. On one hand, like, it is nice sometimes that I'm kind of freed up in my fandom and I can enjoy watching, fantastic games like that Rockets Grizzlies game the other day. And
yeah,
I can focus in on Denver when Denver's playing. I really want to see every game that Nikola Jokic plays. It's just absolute joy to watch. And I've just been I'm freed up. I can commiserate with the Philly misery and like their constant, like, I don't know what curse was put on them, but it's
yeah,
kind of rooting for them to maybe get it together. I'm good with this, man. I'm good at watching the Thunder and the Rockets and the Grizzlies and the Nuggets,
yeah.
and and
I've just gotten to a point with the Bulls fandom where I'm like, I'm not gonna let it impact me anymore. I'm not gonna let it like I'm not gonna get so worked up about it anymore.
I say
Like
that I say that, but then I get pretty worked up every time. So
yeah, unfortunately. But I think this is a good time to close things off. I think we've vented as much as we could. We tried to rationalize as much as we could. We tried to
yeah, that's
break
about
down as
all I
much as we
got for
could.
this team.
Yeah. But with that being said, Bosh, tell everyone where they can find you to talk more basketball because you are one of the best people to talk basketball with.
Well, I appreciate that. You can find me on Blue Sky. You can search by my first name by Basharat, but I believe my handle on there still is systemlords.bsky.social. But if
Hmm.
I change that, just search for Basharat. You'll pull me up.
Yeah. Anything else you want to plug before?
Of course, as always, Chicare, chi-care.org, just a group of volunteers going out into the city of Chicago and finding the unhoused where they are staying, passing out food, supplies, clothing. Do the same. Watch some videos. Search up Chicare on Instagram. See the videos of us doing it. Get some inspiration to do it in your own town, in your own city, with your own
Right.
group of friends. Or help us out here by donating, by volunteering in the warehouse, or going on a run, passing things out.
Exactly, for sure. Definitely give that a look. Give that time out of your day. As for myself, you can follow me on SES at SES Events on all social media platforms. You can find the podcast wherever audio podcasts can be consumed. Just search up 606 Universe, spell out the first six. Over on youtube.com/at 606 Universe. You can find all the video content as well. Linktree/606 Universe. Everything over there. We appreciate any and all support. And we'll be back. Probably not talking Bulls that much, but we'll be back.
Hopefully not.
Probably in the All-Star break, we'll be going over our win-loss projections, and that might be the next thing we do here. But for the meantime, stay tuned. We'll get you guys posted. And by the way, I just saw the Dalton Connect got and the Mark Williams trade got rescinded because Mark Williams didn't pass his physical, so the Lakers got to pick get to keep their picks in Dalton Connect. So they don't have a center anymore. So there's that.
Too bad for Charlotte. That was a good trade they made for them, I think. But
Yeah, good for the Lakers.
Bulls
I
lost,
like
by
that.
the way.
Yeah,
So
yeah. Let's end the episode.